Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of DB Tech. Today we're doing a review on the Fractal Design Define R5. You'll probably notice that Danny's not here right now. He's actually running the camera right behind you, so you can see his hand right there. He's not feeling well, so he didn't want to be in the video with me. It sucks, but hey, hope he feels better. So, like I said, this is the Define R5. I got it because if you haven't heard recently, there was a bit of a stink between Thermal Take and Fractal Design, Case Labs, and a couple other companies. It's been labeled, I think, the Thermal Fake, but I've been looking for a new case recently because I was getting tired of the way that my Thermal Take case, my bad, how it is designed. It didn't really have the functionality that I wanted, so I decided to switch from that case to something like this. It's got everything that I wanted in it. It actually has, inside, I'll show you in a minute, there are 8 hard drive bays, and then on the back side behind the motherboard tray there are 2 SSD slots, or SSD mounts. The other thing that it has is inside there are 2 expansion slots, the 5 1/4 inch for your CD drives or fan controllers or whatever you want to put in there. Anyways, let's start taking it apart. So, inside the case, and I'll take this panel off, it's held on by 2 thumb screws, which, something about this case that I really like is that almost everything that you have to take apart is by thumb screws. There are only about 8 or 9 actual screws that you need just a Phillips screwdriver for. So I have 2 different sizes here. I'm not sure which I'm going to need yet. I haven't actually taken anything out of the case. This will be my really first time pulling everything out. So on the back here, if you noticed, the case didn't fall off, or the panel didn't fall off after I took out the thumb screws. That's because there's a little lever back here that you have to use to pull the case out, because it's held in by those levers. So you can see in here that we have the 8 hard drive bays. It's in 2 different pieces, so you have 3 on the bottom and 5 on the top here. They're both separately removable, and then the individual, I guess you would call these trays, come out and they latch in via little printed locks, I guess you call it. So these are steel, I believe. It's powder coated, and they actually have the name Fractal Design pressed into it, or punched into it. I forget the process that they use for this. In here we have our accessories kit, which just comes with, I believe it's just more screws, grommets for your silencing your hard drives in case they vibrate at all. So it reduces the vibration between the hard drive and this piece, which if this vibrates, it'll vibrate against the metal in here, and it can give a little bit of an eerie noise. But that's something that I like about this case. It has back here behind the motherboard tray and on the front panel, as well as inside the top, and I'll go over this in a minute, there are, I guess you would call it like sound deadening rubber or some kind of material. So that way it keeps the sound inside the case, and you can channel it out the back where there's no deadener, so there's less noise in the room. So like I said, this cage and this cage comes out, as well as the 5 1/4 bay, so you can move your 5 slots up to the top, take them all out if you wanted to, have just the 3 slot up here or at the top. You don't have to use the 5 1/4, it's optional. When you take all those out, you can actually put I think it's 120 millimeter. No, it's a, what size was that?
140?
No, it was a
360.
Yeah, it was a 360 radiator on the front, and then up at the top you can put a 420. It actually it tells you in the manual, which is actually pretty in-depth about everything that goes on with the case. It has diagrams in here in the additional info section for water cooling options. This case, compared to the R4, which is the previous model of it, is incredibly optimized for water cooling. So if you look here, you can put in for 420 millimeter. It's probably going to be out of focus if it gets up close.
Yeah.
Not well.
Well, I don't know.
I'm sure there's a PDF online that I can link to in the description down below. But like I said, it's optimized for water cooling. So the only downside to using water cooling in this case is that you have to use, I believe it says in here, you can only use a 280 millimeter or a 240 on the front if you use a 420 or I believe a 360 at the top, because they'll interfere up here in the top corner. That's still fine because those are huge radiators. The one thing that you want to worry about though is you can only use, say, a 30 millimeter thick radiator plus a 25 millimeter fan, because there is a limit of how low it can come into the case, which is 55 millimeters thickness, including the radiator and the fans. Yeah, anyways, cut it. Alright, so one of the things that I mentioned about this case is that up here on the top there are two 5 1/4 bays, as you can, I'm pretty sure you can see it. But if you look at the front here, there's no way to get to them. So, let me move all my stuff. There's a door which opens up, and then you can pull off the two 5 1/4 bay covers. And it's just pretty simple stuff, little plastic cover, nothing too special. The other thing that I like about the front of the case is that because there's a door, all of your airflow comes in from the sides here. Yeah, you can see right here. And then you also have a dust filter, which at first when I saw the case, or the way the case was designed, I thought that the air filter was in front of these fins, so that it wasn't like the air filter was doing anything. But in fact, you can see back in here, I don't know how well you can see that, it's probably in the shadow, but it does in fact come through the side and then up around into the filter. And you see more of the deadening material like I was talking about, this in the back side and the top and the rest of the case. So the other thing about this is most of you probably have your your cases on your right side if you're a righty, and if you're lefty, I know there's not a lot of people that are. It's I forget what the population is compared, but most people are righties, unfortunately. I am a righty myself. I don't know what Danny is, but I always put this on my left side, which this is good for. But if you put the case on your right, you're probably not going to like this, because you're going to be sitting facing your computer and have to reach around the door to get inside the case. So what they did, which I don't believe they did on the R4, I could be wrong. I haven't taken a personal look at it. But you see here you have two screws. So you take these two screws out and you can move the door from the left side, from the hinge being on the left side, over to the right side. Something I thought was really neat that they did. And this is really the only thing that you need an actual screwdriver to do. So you see it comes off pretty easy. Then you just slip it on this side. These go in. Now I know you can't see this, so I'll just speed this up really quick. So I got it in there, and now you can see it opens to the right instead of to the left. So moving on, and we'll move up to the top of the case. Now inside there are little pegs, which I forget how they work. You have to push them towards the outside of the case, and then it pops off your top panel. Up on the top you have 3 slots that are similar to this, and it has this foam on the back. It deadens your sound. It helps force all the audio noise out of the back of the case. Yeah. This one comes out, but if you notice, there are 2 different shapes. This one is your back one, and they also have to go in a specific order. This is the middle one, and then the front one,
You kind of have to
something
take
else.
off. You have to take off the rear panel to get it out. Is what
Yeah.
I found. Unless you have like a flathead screwdriver, maybe.
Even then, it's hard to get to because the last little pin or little tab that you have to push towards the inside of the case is actually behind the motherboard tray. It's something that I don't like about it, but it doesn't really bother me that much at the same time because I'm never going to use this slot for a fan. Because that's also, if I were to put a fan there, I would have to move my 5 1/4 bays. When I bought this case, whenever Fractal sends you a case that's an R5, it comes with 2 of their, I believe it's the GL5. I'll put a note if I was wrong about that. But it's their design fan. So they come in white with a black background, and you can see the one up here underneath, what is that?
Gotcha.
Thank you, Lenny. There's your dust filter. But you see the other one right here. And there's slot here, or 2 slots there, for 2 either 120 or 140 millimeter fans. There's a lot of fan space in this case, although you probably won't use it all unless you're putting in water cooling parts.
If you really wanted to, you could put 3 120s in the front.
There'd be one at the top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to sacrifice the CD drive slots.
Yeah, so then you lose your 5 1/4 for whatever you use it for. Now this can be moved forward or backward in the little slots right here, or you can move it back to the second mounting point further back, closer to your power supply. So I mentioned a couple of seconds ago about the hard drive bays being able to be moved back towards your power supply. Well, your power supply mounts down here. It mounts at the bottom, and I like that. It gets it out of the way so it's not putting pressure on the back of your case. I had previously a case where the power supply mounted at the top, and it got in the way. Every time I wanted to do something inside the case, it was just this big block sitting in the way, and I couldn't really, it was hard to get to parts that were underneath it. So back here on the back panel, which I need to turn the case for, let me put my dust filter back. Actually, something about the dust filter. I don't think I mentioned it previously. There is a dust filter on the bottom of the case too, which is pretty long, but I like this because on my old case, you had to go around to the back, you had to pull the computer out from wherever it was, go around the back, and then pull the tray out, or the dust panel catcher.
It's kind of like the crumb catcher on a toaster.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah, because you pull it out, then you dump it out and do whatever. But this comes out from the front instead of being pulled out from the back. Really hated it, and I've only cleaned it like twice on my computer, on my old case. So it's pretty easy to get back in there too, if I can find the right way. So yeah, Danny had to help me put that back in because
Even I
retarded
could
at
hardly
this.
do it.
What?
Even I could hardly do it.
Yeah, it was a pain. It's easy when you know where the slot is, but when it's your first time pulling the thing out and pushing it back in, it can get a little tricky. So back here on the back of the case, you have something I like. This is actually something I like. When you go to take off the back panel, the thumb screws are held in by the little tabs on the case that they screw into. This is kind of heavy. It's due to the deadener, like I told you it had back here. It's probably a good 4 or 5 pounds. So you can see I took off the back panel. Here are your 2 solid state drive mounts. They're really easy, thumb screws. Just pull those off, they come right off. Your SSD would mount onto the top of this. I don't have an SSD to show you. I've never run an SSD in any computer before. But they come out pretty easy. You mount the solid state drive on top of it, slide it right into these 2 holes here, and fold it in.
I don't know whether you guys can see or not, but there's a grommet down here. So you can just run your SATA cables right under the case.
Yeah.
And straight up to your motherboard.
Yeah, it also depends on where your SATA ports are on the motherboard. My SATA ports are back over here, right where this grommet is just about. So I would have to route them up and around.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see on the camera, but there's 2 grommets behind these cables.
Yeah, actually, here. This is something else I like.
The
While we're
Velcro
messing
straps.
with it. Yes. Oh my god, this is something that I can't get over. I hate using tie wraps because they get in the way. They're
And
great.
you have to replace them whenever you cut them off.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying they get in the way, because whenever you go, oh, let me change this a little bit, you clip them. Oh, great. Now I got to go find more tie wraps or zip ties or whatever you want to call them. So yeah, you can see you got your Velcro here that comes off. It holds all your cables in. Fractal did a really good job at the cable management back here. I'm probably going to screw it up while I'm putting my new computer in here. But like Danny said, you can see the grommets here and here, as well as this one right here. But that's pretty obvious that there's one there. And there are a couple more little grommets up here. So I'm going to put this back on. And then you got your fan controller here. And actually something else that I wish I had mentioned earlier, there is a fan control switch up here. It's just 3 position, really simple. And it runs 2 of your fans. So you could set it up to run your front and your rear, or your front and one of your tops, or 2 fronts, or whatever you want to do. And it's actually powered by a SATA cable. Back here on the motherboard tray is the mounting points for your ATX, micro ATX, or I said micro ATX? Yeah, I said micro ATX. And mini ITX. It doesn't support your eATX boards because if you look back here, which I'll show you right here, there is sort of an angle piece where the grommets are installed instead of being flat and coming up at an angle where the hard drive cages are. It helps with your cable routing if you're coming up from your power supply and coming back around here and up through here, however you route your cables. But it helps keep that sharp 90-degree bend out of them, so you can kind of ease it into whatever plug you're plugging into. Up here in the front is your power button. I don't believe you can see that. I'll tip this up on its front end a little bit. So you can see up here you have your power. There's a little small restart button, sort of like the buttons that you have on like a DVR or something, in case it freezes and won't work. You have a reset that you just push a pin into or something. I can't actually press it with my finger because I have a big ass finger. I don't know. It could be any of those. And then you have your headphone and microphone plugs or jacks. Was it 2.5 millimeter, I think, or 3.5 millimeter. And then over here you have 2 USB 2.0 as well as 2 USB 3.0 plugs.
The USB 3 ports on this computer are not blue.
Yeah.
It looks really weird and it was really confusing for me. So you might get a little bit confused by that as well.
Yeah, thankfully they're labeled instead of just being color-coded. Like Danny said, it could be a downside. I don't particularly consider it a downside because I notice the difference, but I don't really care which port to plug into. Because they both do the exact same thing, just one does it a little bit slower, and the only time I really have a preference is if I need to get something done extremely quickly.
Yeah, and really, I don't mind the fact that it's not blue. I mean, I actually think it looks better with the case. It matches.
Yeah, exactly like Danny said. Instead of having that bright bullet blue, you don't get, or you get a more of a matching color because they are gray. Both of the USB 2.0 and 3.0 slots are gray, just like the outside of the case. Alright, so that concludes our review of the Fractal Design Defiant R5. If you really liked the video, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you really liked it, make sure to subscribe to our channel. It really shows your support. But anyways, finish up.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week. Have a good day.